we will go back to Mr. Knapp. Everybody should have a copy of the, without the appendix, but at least the executive summary or the summary of the report. Mr. Knapp, I think what is probably helpful is what we just need to understand what happened.
What happened?
How didn't redistricting get completed? What do we need to do to make sure that it doesn't happen again? This wasn't the first election that I know I received, and I'm sure other members of the delegation received. You all began to put out the election night reporting information. I think your report is important to explain why Beaufort County, why what happened here did not allow that to happen. But this is not the first election in recent history that Beaufort County information seems to not be on the state information as quickly as the rest of the state information. A number of folks I know reach out to me as a member of the delegation, as well as others on the delegation, complaining. While we don't have a direct role in it, obviously we do appoint the board.
Sure.
So with that, we look forward to hearing.
Okay. So to kind of do a high-level walkthrough of the report, pages 1 through 6 explain the redistricting timeline of Beaufort County. It's all about redistricting. Middle of page 6 is where the SEC was alerted to the issues that we're all here to talk about on June 8th and what happened during early voting. Page 7 is the scope of the overall problem. So basically, let's go to page 7. Approximately 70 voters have been given a ballot with the wrong county council seat on the ballot. And that was across 15 precincts. I'm not going to read them out loud. You can see them there. I believe that's basically the southern tip of Hilton Head and the eastern part of Bluffton. 2,038 voters in those 15 precincts were not redistricted by Beaufort County. And then that's just in those 15 precincts. And then overall in the whole county, 3,237 voters in total were not redistricted at the county council level. It's important to focus that this issue is a county council race issue.
When you say we're not redistricted, meaning they were left in their prior
county council district.
The record showed them still being in the previous county council district.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So going on to page 8, that we talk about what the state did. We worked with the Beaufort County office and Director Smalls to remediate the issue on the spot. So we have an early voting issue, which is where this all...
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Knapp. Let's go back to page 7.
Yes, ma'am.
I've read this sentence under that's delineated as number 2. 2,038 voters, as you said, and those 15 precincts were not redistricting by Beaufort County office. However, the SEC found that 3,237 voters in total were not redistricted at the county council level throughout the entire county. Give me an explanation of what's the difference and what caused that 1,200 vote difference between 2,000 and 32. What's that basically saying in
the 2,000 number is just those just all the voters in those 15 precincts. The 3237 number is all out, including that 2,000 number, and then the additional 1,200 outside of those 15 precincts. So
spread across the county,
the entire county.
Okay.
Like
and what caused that?
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, and it's as difficult as this is. It was even harder to try and write it. So 70 voters got the wrong county council district when they went to go vote in early voting. 70.
Yeah, but 2,000.
But 2,000 were affected in those 15 precincts.
Okay.
But the total number of people that got or did not get redistricted at the county council level, meaning they were stuck in their old district, was over 3,200 people.
I got it.
In the whole county.
Sure. And were those races Generally, I wasn't at the last meeting, I had to send a proxy. Were those heavily contested races?
So I don't have those numbers. I can tell you not all county council districts had races at all in the primaries. They were not contested, which is why, you know, if you're looking at how many people actually got thrown out, it was the Republican voters in those 15 precincts, because that was a Republican primary that were impacted. So the 3,200 number, a lot of those 3,200 people didn't even have a primary in which to vote in June, because they're, you know, either that seat was not up or there was no contested primary.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
Senator.
Mr. Chairman, I think there are some things in the summary here that the public needs to hear, and I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud because it raises concerns in my mind about what's happening. As was mentioned, redistricting is an infrequent, complex, and time-sensitive process. However, as this report shows and the various appendices illustrate, Beaufort County was not on a compressed timeline to complete the county council redistricting process, unlike many other counties. Also, unlike many other counties, Beaufort County has an experienced director and staff who have been involved in past redistricting cycles. Beaufort County is also a large county with adequate local resources, i.e. adequate staffing in the voter registration election office, seemingly sufficient funding to accomplish its mission, and a county GIS office that provided assistance, all of which many other counties do not possess. In fact, in a March 9 email, the county director stated that the county GIS office had updated county council files indicating the GIS department was providing assistance. The bottom line is other counties with less resources and less experience successfully redistricted their county council districts with no problems. I mean, it goes on in that vein, and so I guess it begs the question, why a wealthy county like Beaufort County with an experienced staff, these problems still arose, and I think that's what we need to get to the bottom of here.
Oh, okay.
We'll ask, Ms. Thomas, give me just 1 minute. Let's finish with Mr. Knapp, and then we'll I think Senator Davis's question will be directed with you. Please, ma'am. Mr. Knapp, let me, if you will, just walk through the rest of it. I mean, because, again,
Sure.
What we've gotten to this point is we understand there was a redistricting problem. You understand what the magnitude of the problem was, both on the number of ballots that had been given out and the total number that you all have identified. Then what? In terms of the election itself, then what? Because that was what, there were lots of lingering questions
Sure.
that came after that.
So, and just to kind of finish up the redistricting issue, because this is what I need to make this point. The Beaufort County office identified these voters to be redistricted. What really happened, because this is what the redistricting process is that counties identify these voters need to be moved to this precinct. They let the SEC know, and we move them. That's the process that did not happen. The SEC was never told, hey, move these voters. So going back to the ballot issue, to fix this issue, we had to create a new election database. Now, an election database, it contains every ballot for every voter in the state. Each one of you may have very similar ballots, but you all have what's called a ballot style. You have different county council people, maybe state senate, et cetera. So we had to create a new database that involved everybody, and that's why election day went well. Everybody had the correct ballots. Everybody had been redistricted by us. So go into election night. I cannot speak to the overall delays in reporting, but I can speak to election night on that particular election. Our election night reporting tool, as on page 8, the middle paragraph pretty much spells out, each county has a single database, and that's the way the ENR tool works. It accepts a single database. Basically, if you have a Word document, you have people working on it, everyone's working on the same Word document, which is why you have, on election night, Richland County will have partial results. They're uploading results from that same database. It's the same database as being overwritten with new and updated results. Here, we had a situation where Beaufort County had two databases. So Beaufort County staff worked what's off to manually enter results from the old database into the new database. And I also want to kind of do a segue here. When we talk about, because there's a lot of talk about hand counting results, this is an illustration of what that would look like, and this was just for 15 precincts. Marie's deputy worked incredibly hard to manually enter all those results into the new database so it could be reported on election night, or on the election night tool. So that took a long time. That was the big delay. That's why it took forever for the results to come out. Beaufort did release what results they had, as you'll see at the top of page 9, 38 of its 98 precincts. After Beaufort County did their job, the state had to basically audit the results to ensure, because there was a lot, and we all remember it, there was a lot of talk in conspiracy theories, and maybe not conspiracy, but just theories about what they were hanging out there, questioning the validity of the election at every level, not just county council, but congressional, etc. So we audited this election using the old database, the new database, the results tapes from all the precincts to ensure the math added up, and it did. So it was not super quick, but we were methodical. We worked with the Beaufort County office and her people, and then we certified the election. So.
Okay, any questions?
I should add, after the summer and page 11, because I know y'all are going to ask about this, what do we do moving forward? So, redistricting. The state has never, and the State Election Commission has never held or had a role in redistricting at the less than state level area. We worry about state house, state senate, Congress. The counties are responsible for everything countywide and less than. So, and those of you who have been around a while know Bobby Bowers was the backbone of redistricting forever in the state. He passed away. There was not a lot of support from agencies that had in the past supported counties in the SEC, and we had to rely on Bobby Bowers' protege, Will Roberts, who I think is now at Legislative Council. But basically, my agency needs a GIS person who will help with redistricting, not just the Senate in 2024, but voters are constantly moving in this state and throughout the state. And we need to make sure that people are in the physical boundaries they need to be in. So that's one thing that'll help my agency. And second of all, I'm not going to say if, when there's another dual database situation, I am acquiring a tool that will just merge the two databases together, to ensure that we don't have a 2 or 3 day delay publishing results if that happens again.
Any questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Rivers.
Yes, sir. I'm hearing you correctly. The problem is that council did not notify or get the information to where it should have gotten to. They're the ones who were part of the redistricting process, right?
Sure. The Beaufort County office did not notify the SEC. These people need to be moved.
The county office.
The Beaufort County Office of Voter Registration and Elections did. In fact, they certified a few times that everything looks good, and it wasn't. And we can't. There are hundreds of county council districts in this state, and it's not our responsibility to ensure. And that's why I said we're a state agency where we worry about state level offices.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
In summation on page 11, about midway through, you say, as has been shown, Beaufort County received multiple error lists. Tell me what they are, multiple error lists.
So error lists or kickout lists is basically other checks. Like I said, Will Roberts, who was then at the South Carolina State Senate, helping them with their redistricting. They and the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office, they did a check, and not just for county council, but for every redistricting plan to ensure voters were redistricted correctly. When a county says, SEC, move these voters, it doesn't matter what the office is for, the district, move these voters. After that move is done, another check is done to ensure that the voters were moved, the correct voters were moved, and there were no errors after that move occurred. oftentimes there will be errors after that move has occurred. And so you'll have people living right on the boundaries that should or should not be in whatever district they were redistricted to, and that is what creates a kick out or an error list. It's basically a red flag. Hey, you need to look at these people and ensure at the street level they are in the district they're supposed to be in.
So that happened here, and you guys
A few times.
notified Beaufort County.
Well, the state Senate notified Beaufort County.
But there's no record of Beaufort County then requesting that you move the voters.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp, for being here. Thank you for the report. Is there, you noted that the staff at the election office worked really hard on getting the two databases
They did.
combined. Was that started after the primary and worked up until the election day, or was that something that had to be done at the election day?
That had to be done after polls closed
Okay.
because they were inputting election results into the data from old
Not
to
have
new.
been done ahead of time.
No.
Literally, they had to do all of that work on that particular night. So
And that's why when we say if y'all want hand counting of election results, you're going to be waiting months for election results. Think about if this were a congressional race, what this would have been like across 4 or 5 counties.
I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
you have 2 weeks
No.
to be able to put these people in to
No.
merge the databases. They had that one night.
They had 1 or 2 days total. I know Vernon, her deputy, worked the entire time, which was another reason we audited because Vernon was exhausted. They all were, and we were too, but not as much as them. So we needed another set of eyes.
It doesn't negate the what happened in the beginning, but they were working as quickly as they could.
Sure.
The back end of correction.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, Mr. Rivers?
I'm just curious as far as similar errors are going to happen, right? So I'm just curious percentage-wise across the state, because this may not be an anomaly. I mean, because whenever you're going to have multiple things, there are going to be mistakes. So I don't want to focus on mistake in one place and amplify that so it doesn't happen more regular.
We did not, I'm not going to sit here and say that no other county, I will say that no other county had these issues in the primary. Redistricting had just occurred, and I know the office had ample time at the county council level. There was a lot going on, and add on to it, the early voting bill just passed. So I'm not here to give excuses. What happened happened. I think we can move on from it. I think there were no other issues in the primaries that we saw. But again, statewide. Now, it is entirely possible that there were some people. I don't want to say that. Never mind. I'm not going to say that. I just can't guarantee that no other county had issues. It's possible that voters went to the polls not knowing who to vote, like who was going to be on their ballot and voted. But we did not have any. I mean, the impetus for this was you had a county council candidate who went to go vote for himself and didn't find himself, and he was mad as hell, and I understand why. But there were different checks that should have caught that well in advance. So basically an error occurred at both the state and the county worked their butts off to fix it.
To hear you correctly, you're saying based on everything that was going on, it was exacerbated by all the things that happened at the state level, redistricting, and all those things contributed to whatever we're talking about.
Yes, Representative. A lot of things contributed to this.
Thank you.
Senator?
And Mr. Knapp, I want to preface this by saying that I get it, that we were getting, I was on the Senate Redistricting Committee, and one of the problems we had, it was a hurry up and rush process with all of our public hearings and whatnot, because with the pandemic and everything that went on, we all, across the state, across the U.S., received the census numbers about 9 months late.
Yeah.
Put us all into a crunch.
Yes.
In looking at this, I'm trying to figure out the process without studying this along with your appendices. When did Beaufort County Council submit or complete and submit its redistricting plan?
On page 3, Beaufort County Council passed their plan on January 24th of 2022.
And when did it submit it? Who then submits that plan, I guess, to the Senate or to the delegation?
No, so that
for approval?
it
goes somewhere else.
No, I mean, the county council sets their own maps. So the maps are set by county council as they were on January 24th. It's then left to the election office and the county GIS to literally map it, move voters, determine which voters need to be redistricted. And then if you could kind of dive deep, they identify those voters, they tell the SEC, move the voters, they're moved.
And then those voters, just to break it down a little bit to layman's language, those voters, once that map that is approved after several hearings in county council is then submitted immediately to the county's election commission office, and then it's the responsibility of their workers to send out notice to the voters that, hey, Margie, you're going to be in this district as opposed to this district in the next upcoming election, and the other arm of that office then sends that information maybe simultaneously or soon thereafter to your office so that you can put it into a system?
Yes. So
that's an elementary version of
it is. It's, as you know, it's extremely more complex than that. And counties actually, one arm of the county office would send out new voter registration cards once all redistricting was done. But it is a tedious process by the county and the county office and the county GIS office to identify down to the street level, Jane Doe and John Doe are moving to this district and such and so forth. So once those moves are identified, they fill out a form with us and say, SEC, move these voters in these districts. And then we push the button, they're moved. A check is done, sometimes a few times to make sure everything's right.
I see in your summary where there's a lot of reference to the amount of staff that Beaufort County has and the amount of members, increase in population in Beaufort County, I think was referenced. Who made the general reference in the summary and the moving forward? Who's responsible for making those conclusory statements regarding comparing Beaufort County and what went on here regarding the process that happened?
That would be me at the SEC, just knowing what other counties went through, how other county elections went. Did you, prior to making those summations about what should and should not have done, did you come and make an independent, have an independent review with the elections office here to see whether or not they, in fact, even though they had staff available, whether or not staff was actually here, or whether or not they had any other issues that might have affected their ability to carry out the process the way you saw? I did not. I just know their total staff numbers in comparison at a high level to other county offices. And that's why I made the statement they have, in my opinion, as uninformed as it may be, enough FTEs to do the job. The largest office in the state is Richland, I believe, with about 19 or 20 people, and that's the second largest county in the state. I can't speak to Director Small's needs. Just like no other state agency head can tell me what I need unless they're me. But just from my outside observation, knowing what other counties are working with and how they perform, that's where those statements are coming from.
Did you talk directly with Director Smalls?
During this situation, yes.
And did she ever express any concerns about staffing or give any reason why this occurred?
No.
Did you ask?
No, I didn't. I assumed if there were reasons as to why events occurred, they would have been divulged to me, volunteered to me. And that's not to say that her existing staff wasn't experiencing or frankly going through hell at the time and wasn't exhausted. So I know they were. I'd say that's not to say her existing staff were not exhausted, which I know they were. She did tell us that these people working on these things, they're tired, they're exhausted. We've been here since, yesterday. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Senator.
To me, the question isn't whether they were working hard to correct things. I don't know why this thing arose in the first place. And to me, I don't know about the rest of the members of the delegation here, but this report is fairly damning in regard to having the resources, being alerted to the errors, and not correcting those errors. And this is a serious matter. I mean, people were disenfranchised.
Mr. Rivers.
Yeah, I guess, so you were around during the last redistricting process as well?
no. That's no. This is my third year in the office.
So I guess what I'm trying to ascertain is that do track record means anything in the level of performance?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the track record of this office has been one of high quality.
Well, overall performance, yes, I would say so.
So most times when you grade people, it's not on a one-time shot. It's based on the collection and the totality of their work.
Correct. This is as the title of this report says, this is not a report on the entire office, it's people or anything like that. This is a look at a specific process that was or was not done and how it affected one election.
So my thing then is will be seeing what unfair, what's the right word, to be punitive about one incident that's totally mostly out of control based on everything that was going on, as opposed to seeing it as a learning opportunity for the future. In this environment where punitivity is something that people look for, hopefully that doesn't happen here.
Wait, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Senator.
I don't want to be punitive, but there ought to be consequences to what happened here. I mean, and this isn't...
Point of order.
Consequences is how you learn. So hopefully we...
Gentlemen, bear with me 1 minute. Senator.
I believe the point of order should be that the representative was asking a question of the presenter, and I just point of order that he should be permitted to do that.
Thank you.
And if Mr. Davis has any responses, he should be allowed to do that too.
I thought I had been recognized. I apologize.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Rivers.
No, I was just saying that consequences are good, but we got to go with what have been shown to work. Because people don't get bad overnight.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, guys, let me remind you of what I said when I started out. There's an Attorney General's opinion that makes it clear our role with regard to these issues are very limited, right? I mean, obviously we pass the laws or among the group that passes the laws, but I mean, our role as a delegation is limited to the appointments on the board. And this was an issue that exploded in the backdrop of questions from the last national election and how important it was to get it right. And we didn't get it right here for whatever reason, and part of what we're doing today is to try to understand why, to make sure that if there are issues identified, that there are staff shortages, that the county council is aware of that we're aware of that, the role that our appointees have on the board, what we need to do to make sure that something like this does not happen again, and to ensure the citizens in this part of South Carolina that this election was fair, it was appropriate, these errors were dealt with in a timely manner, the election was audited, the results are proper that came out, but that there are consequences naturally from problems, and we're part of the identifying that and looking at what that is. So I just want to put that context out there for all of us to keep in mind. Representative Bradley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, Mr. Newton just said, except for the last bit, is that, no, I mean, is that what happened? I mean, the way he characterized it was identified and these problems happen, it's been corrected, and it's not.
The problems manifested themselves, they were addressed, and they were remediated. And I have in my report what we can do in the future to ensure it doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you.
And I say that as the head of the State Election Commission. I don't know if every problem in that office has been fixed, if what problems exist, as a caveat. But from my perspective as an agency head, the issue at hand was dealt with.
Please.
Is it that there's just so much data that it's impossible? I mean, when you talked a couple of times today about being down at the street level,
Sure.
And that makes me take a deep breath.
Me too.
Thinking that you have to be down at the street level. You're running a county. And how many voters do we have in the county?
About 135,000.
135,000. So you have to know the location of 135,000 people. But at the same time, 3,200 people to 135,000 is about 3%. That's a pretty sizable chunk, all in all.
It is.
And I guess you'll talk about maybe what safeguards we have from this happening again. So I'll stop right there.
Okay.
The last thing that I would ask is from the state's perspective. Are our records correct now in Beaufort County in terms of redistricting? To the extent that you all have done your check, that Will Roberts has been involved with doing all that? I mean,
to my knowledge, everything is checked out for Congress and the State House, and we're going to get rolling on the State Senate in 2024. So, yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Thank you very much. Other questions?
They're not.
Thanks very much. Don't go anywhere. We may have a follow-up. Ms. Smalls, thank you for being here.
Thank you all for allowing Beaufort County an opportunity to speak in front of you today. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Knapp for coming down and trying to explain what was a very difficult night for us at the Beaufort County Voter Registration Office. And as you know, in the past, and Howard can attest for this as well, Beaufort County had pretty much an exemplary record. And when the error occurred and it came to our attention, we immediately contacted the State Election Commission to assist us with resolving the issues. And if you notice in your report, there were 70 voters who may not have gotten the correct ballot. Okay, so the issue was corrected immediately once it was brought to our attention. Now, so far as redistricting is concerned, yes, we are responsible for making sure that every voter has the correct district on the county level. Well, every level, really. But our GIS department provided us the data. And you know, we have one of the best GIS in the whole state of South Carolina. And they provided us the street data. We attempted to input all of that data, which we did. And when we got the kick-out report, which is he referenced as the error report, was on May 26th, if I'm not mistaken. We thought we were done with redistricting. We thought that all of our streets were updated, and the number of errors that were kicked out, it sounds like it was 3,000 people. They were 3,000 addresses. Okay, some of these are apartment buildings, and so it may seem to be astronomical, but it wasn't that bad. It was bad enough. One is too many as far as I'm concerned. So you have to look at it on an address by address basis. And so we are responsible for making sure every voter is, according to their address, is in the correct district. And when you have apartment complexes with the same number, just maybe a different apartment, it's going to appear more than it really is. What we did was, there's enough blame to go around on our level, state level as well. But it's my responsibility to make sure that this information is correct. And so I must say, and I apologize that it was because I am the director, all right? And I'm not blaming staff, because staff did the best that they can, but the best that they could. And so we, as a staff, along with the State Election Commission, came up with a plan to mitigate the damages that were done and correct them. I don't want to say we fixed them, but we tried to correct them. And I think in the end, we reported the correct results, even though we spent numerous hours there, and that's okay, because we realized, along with my board chair, who's sitting right behind me, realized that we had to get it done. And rerunning every single ballot that was cast in Beaufort County is what we did. When we certified our election on that Friday, the board certified the correct results, all right? And so I think we can continue to blame folks about this and blame folks about that, but we did what we needed to do. It was an unfortunate incident, and again, I can't do anything else. We are human. When we contacted our GIS department about the discrepancy in what was coming back on the report and what they initially gave us, they found that there was a difference in the data that was up at the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office versus what they had. So what GIS did, which was, I commend them because they were so accommodating to us, is they went line by line on that report and told us what the differences were and what it was before and what it should be. And some of them didn't change because, like Mr. Knapp said, it was right on the line. So even though it may have showed up as an error, it was not an error at all. So, it's one of those things, in order for you to do it, you have to actually physically audit street by street by street, house number by house number by house number, to make sure that every voter is in the correct district. And I feel comfortable now that that has taken place. Beaufort County should not be worried about whether or not their voters, whether or not they're in the correct district. And again, Beaufort County submitted their redistricting data, I think, back in January. We didn't start the redistricting process until April. And we had early voting beginning in May. Okay, and then all the changes that came to us on the 13th, which kind of like exacerbated the situation. Again, I'm not making excuses for anything that happened, but it was a lot going on within a short period of time. All right. So far as your concerns about election results coming in late, I know that in the past, before we went to the new voting equipment, that we were working with a piece of equipment that we modem our results in from the outskirts of the county to our office, and we stopped that many years ago because of security reasons. So, we don't do that anymore. All of our results are driven in from Hilton Head and Bluffton to the Beaufort office, which takes time. And not only does it take time, we have to verify the information once it gets to us before we report it. I know it's not very timely, but by the time the results come from the precinct to the drop-off site, and those, the information, whether or not everybody's got their thumb drive with the information, the paper ballots that they need, if once that's verified, then it's coming to the Beaufort office and we upload the results. That's what's taking so long. And I know it's like, we can't report it if it's not here. And I know everybody wants their results immediately, but we prefer to make sure that we would prefer that our results are correct and not timely, versus timely. So it's still going to be late. It's still going to be late because you have to come from Hilton Head, and it's an hour drive at least an hour drive from Hilton Head. And by the time the poll is closed and results are verified at the precinct, and we making sure that they bring everything back that we need on election night to report, it could be 2.5 hours later. So that's the reason why the results are coming in later than you guys used to seeing them, because we do not transfer anything by modem anymore. Everything is being physically done.
Senator Davis.
Ms. Miles, have you seen a copy of this report that the State Election Commission?
I saw it this morning, yes.
I'm going to read the summation. It says, in summation, the State Election Commission reviewed the redistricting data from Beaufort County and found that Beaufort County understood voters needed to be redistricted at the county council level, but never redistricted them, nor asked the State Election Commission to manually redistrict any voters. As has been shown, Beaufort County received multiple error lists, but there is no record of Beaufort County requesting the State Election Commission to move the voters. Do you dispute that? Did you receive multiple error lists and not request the moving of those voters?
Right. What happened when we got that report? We were on a call with the State Election Commission, Mr. Leach, Brian Leach, and we were under the assumption that everything was going to be updated on that Friday night when they ran their report. It was my understanding, all right? Obviously, that was not the case, all right? So when I contacted Brian, what happened to update? Oh, that changed after we went into the early voting option. And so it was updated the week before, not the Friday that we were told that it was going to get updated. Again, it was a miscommunication. We verbally spoke with the State Election Commission about the errors that we had and that it was corrected. So it was corrected. It was not corrected on the state level. So I do dispute the fact that you said that it was not corrected. We did. That's the report we got from our I know, I'm saying. That's the report we got from our GIS department that went line by line, and we went into the system and updated all that information, and it just never got updated on the state level.
So it's the State Election Commission's error.
Like I said, there's enough blame to go around. It was I'm going to say it's a miscommunication because I didn't put it in writing. I spoke to the Brian Leach, who is responsible for running the redistricting report and all other changes, address changes and everything else that was taking place.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Smalls, let me ask you a question. I mentioned about the delay, and I appreciate, I remember at the time when the county first went to the new machines and the modem and getting information, and obviously questions and concerns about modems and plugged into the internet. Well, geographically, we're not the biggest county in the state.
No, we're not.
So, I mean, point to point, I get it. Hilton Head, you got the water. It's about, for 13 years while I came and sat in this seat, I drove from the south end to Hilton Head. So I understand that challenge, but I also know the geography of the rest of the state. We seem to lag in getting our result. I understand the explanation. What I don't understand is how the other counties that are equally as big as we are, that have polling places in as remote locations as we do, seem to be able to report to the state system on a consistent basis more timely than we do.
Again, that's a question I cannot answer. I can only tell you what the process is here. What they do, from my understanding, is every poll manager, even the ones, say Charleston County being one of the biggest counties, they drive their results in directly to the election central office, and we do not require that of our poll workers. A lot of our poll workers do not even drive at night. So if I ask someone that lived on Sea Pines, 85-year-old poll worker, to drive to Beaufort County at 8 or 9 o'clock at night to bring their results, then they're going to have to drive back. They are not going to do that.
So how do you get them now?
They go to, the folks on Hilton Head go to the Hilton Head Library. They drop off their results there. We verify there at Hilton Head Library that they have brought us the zero tape, the results tape, the thumb drive, the ballots, cards and everything else, and then we take those results and drive them to Beaufort. We have about 27 locations on Hilton Head, and I don't know how many in Bluffton, but there's a lot in Bluffton as well. And they code, the folks in Bluffton and Sun City, they move their results over to the Bluffton office. We have a satellite office in Bluffton, and it gets verified there. Okay, and then they drive those results over here. And the reason why I'm saying that, because almost every election we have someone, one of those poll managers, who may forget something. And if they come to Beaufort and we discover that they forget something, now they're going to have to drive all the way back to Bluffton and or Hilton Head to get whatever they may have left and come back to Beaufort, which will delay the results even longer. So the process that we have in place is we call them drop-off sites. And so it kind of minimizes the folks having to drive such a long distance, and if they forget something, having to go all the way back.
So everybody on Hilton Head drives their stuff to the library. We wait until we got everybody's in the library. Then we drive it to Bluffton, and we wait there.
No. They drive it to Beaufort. They come to Beaufort.
Oh, so the Bluffton and then...
The Bluffton does it by themselves.
Does the rest of the state do it that way? Okay, I wish, that, and I know there are a couple of members of the board, you all would look, because one of the biggest complaints that I know I get is, why does Beaufort County seem to be the slowest reporting county of anybody in the state? And it's not this past election. Obviously, we had the problems and the double and the retabulation that had to be done. It's ever since the modem quit being used. It's every election. And we get it. And I know that out of 46 counties, that somebody's figured out how to do it without the concern of somebody might have to drive late at night and drive home. But I just think we owe the taxpayers and voters more accurate information than one that is at midnight or 2 a.m. And I think we ought to figure out how to do that. Yes, ma'am.
I think my mic might have been turned off on purpose by someone, but I'll speak up a little bit louder. Senator Campson is not here, but I think I could probably speak for myself on this issue, being one of the ones on this board, on this delegation. I represent Charleston County. My results come in last every time in Charleston County. I wish that they would implement a process that Beaufort has where, because they have to come from the islands. They have to come from Edisto Island and go all the way to North Charleston. And that has always been a problem, especially when the bridge, we had problems with the bridge, the main road bridge going down and other issues. So when I have gotten I'm just a baby senator. But I've been through 3 cycles. Beaufort County's results have come in even quicker than Colleton. So my experience, because Colleton complains that they have to wait for Edisto Beach, and they will have the folks from Edisto Beach coming in individually and not in a collection site. Charleston doesn't have the collection site. They probably need to implement that, because I know to you all it might seem that we're coming in last. But I think Mr. Knapp, even though he's only been there 3 years, Richland County is notorious for being the last, okay?
And they're right next door.
And they're right down the street from the Election Commission. So I just want to say that I understand there's been a problem this last term, but in my experience, Beaufort County has gotten me results. And I, as a candidate, can call and get those results and get them real time, whereas even across the street from my office, it's hard for me to get the results from Edisto Beach. So I'm not necessarily feeling what you're feeling, and I always know that I have to wait until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to get my Charleston results.
Got it.
And I wish Campson was here so he could explain what he experiences.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Ms. Moles, let me just, one last thing, and this is just a suggestion and for the board as well. When you all realized that there was a problem with these 70, Beaufort County should have done a better job, in my humble opinion, letting people know that there was a problem. As chairman of the delegation, Mr. Knapp called me to tell me that there was a problem after I read in the newspaper, and all of us did in Columbia, about the problems. And I mean, each of our respective devices, whether it be phones, emails, exploded with people in Beaufort County complaining about improper ballots being given out. And we were in a vacuum. We didn't have any good information to share with anybody. Quite frankly, we didn't know what had happened. And we're trying to begin to sort it out. And Mr. Knapp called me to make sure that I was aware, and purely as a conduit. And then I sent out a memo that went to all members of the delegation about the constituent concerns, and just that we would have this follow-up session. So I would encourage you all to communicate, whether it's with Ms. Maxey, whether it's the county administrator. People need to know when there's a problem, so we get in front of this for the integrity of the entire voting process, not so that on the backside we're all, you know, who's hiding the ball and why are people not being forthcoming. So appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Was the problem realized when the early voting started, or was it realized on election day?
Early voting.
When Mr. Coker went to vote.
He went in early vote. He tried to early vote.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other questions about how he was able to sign up to run in that office when he hadn't been redistricted to that office, but there's allusion to that in this report. Nonetheless, I'm not sure that is of consequence. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Ms. Smalls.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.